primary goal is to show everyone that primarily first they are geniuses, and then secondly, how to use your genius to benefit yourself and society. But before that, I'll just introduce what the Posteri conversation is about. The Posteri conversation is a monthly conclave of professionals from every walk of life. Our primary aim is to cross pollinate knowledge and resources for the benefit of mankind. And the parent organization is the Provenance Circle, whose primary aim is to shape posterity by connecting the minds and resources that are capable of doing so. So, welcome and let's get right to it. I'm going to go over a couple of people whom the world largely consider to be geniuses. But then I'm going to talk about when they were not so, or when they looked, or when they didn't look so much like geniuses. So the period of their lives when people consider them to just be normal people, people who did not necessarily have the capacity to change the world. First on our list is the almighty Albert Einstein. Now, Einstein was the only graduate from his set, his class of 1900, to not be offered a research post. He had to take a job as a clerk. That's very strange considering that it's the same Einstein we know who has the general theory of relativity. Same Einstein who talks all about the beauty of gravity and how it's able to warp space-time. Same Einstein who helped other scientists in their research by reading their work and helped to propagate the entire field of physics, mathematics as well. Same Einstein who is arguably the most popular scientist to have ever lived across any time period was not granted a research post. But they had justifiable reasons, and that's the point I'm going to make from all the experts. They had justifiable reasons. He was inattentive in class. He came late to class a lot of the time, and he did not necessarily perform well. So any teacher with that type of students has every right to write off such a student. However, that he was written off by his teachers did not necessarily mean he was going to write himself off. And so he was able to transform himself later on through a number of things, which I'm not going to go into, but we now know his name. And the obsession with Einstein got so much at some point that even after his death, his brain was preserved illegally by the doctor who was assigned to him. And this particular doctor just felt that Einstein's brain was uniquely designed. This person tried to ensure there was going to be continuous study on the brain for the longest period of time. Obviously, it didn't really yield much. And we now know that Einstein was Einstein not necessarily because of a unique configuration of his brain, but because of how he used his brain. Next person is John Gordon. He's actually one of my favorite laureates because he has such a bright personality. He was ranked last of 250 students in biology. That's crazy. Not 20 students, 250 students. He was ranked last at 15. And his biology teacher wrote to him that his ambition to become a scientist was quite ridiculous, ranking him last of roughly 250 students and warning that teaching him further would be a waste of time. Now, just let that sink in. It's not just that he was ranked last, but they wrote off his entire future and said teaching him any further was going to be a waste of time. That's crazy to think of. And by the way, he won a Nobel Prize in 2012 in physiology of medicine. That's crazy to think about, that somebody that was said would not be able to understand biology won a Nobel Prize in medicine. And of course, we know biology is the framework of medicine. Again, think about it for a moment. Think about your own life and how many times you've been written off in different areas and how that has affected your mind and the kind of things you are now more inclined to pursue versus what you would have pursued back then. John Gordon did not let any of such thoughts stop him, by the way. Next person here is Katalin Kariko. She went through a lot. Her She was demoted for pursuing her research in mRNA, and she went through a lot in investing, including as a lecturer here, including getting a pay cut and a number of other things. But her mRNA based research was what led to the COVID 19 mRNA based vaccine. And she won a Nobel Prize in Physiology of Medicine for exactly that. She had to go through what you might call persecution because she pursued it. And there's more to this story. There was a lecturer who was above her, I think, who went went on to pursue the mRNA research. And it was when he began to pursue it that every other person now realized that there was life in it and it made so much sense. He was the person who told her to do it, by the way. So it's a strange world we live in. Every every example I give, you will notice a pattern that every single person who I have mentioned was dismissed by another human being. There was no consensus voice of the universe that came and said these people were nothing. It was human beings at every stage that told these people that they were not all that. Hans Krebs, anybody who did any form of biology should know of the Krebs cycle. Well, not necessarily. If you did biochemistry, you should know the Krebs cycle, all the most important cycles in biochemistry. His discovery was rejected by the journal Nature, and they described it as they cited a lack of space at the time, but really they were just not interested in taking on this research. It was this same research that led to the publication of Krebs cycle, and now we have it as something that is not any student of biochemistry or biology anywhere. And then we have Thomas Lindahl. Thomas Lindahl famously failed chemistry in high school, went on to become a Nobel laureate in chemistry. Again, the failure was not meted against him by a consensus voice of the universe. It was someone who marked his script and failed him. Now, I, that's all for this slide, by the way. I want us to just pause and think at this point. In life, generally, the people we call geniuses tend to be the people who establish themselves after so much work. Not necessarily the people that are smart. Yes, of course, when you are in secondary school, primary school, there are usually people that they would say that the smartest in class, and these ones are doing very well. But when it comes to real life, when everybody becomes an adult, nobody just uses that term genius lightly anymore. They use it for people who have made something of themselves. So people who have demonstrated that thing that was said about them that they are geniuses can amount to something. So knowledge that's just resident in your head, in your mind, is not necessarily enough to give you that title of genius. It is knowledge that you have used. However, the greatest enemy
You want to switch mic?
can they, let me just test. But this is supposed to be charged. I don't know why. Because if it's not charged, it's supposed to show red. Alright, so we're going to do an exercise. An exercise is simple. You guys will start. So we're going to do an exercise. An exercise is simple.
I think the mic is working.
Is that the mic?
Yes, try this. Try this one.
Do you have to connect that? Okay, so the mic is working.
Yes.
This thing is stressing me out. So let's just continue. So I said we're going to do an exercise. And the exercise is simple. It's both of you, so I'll start with you. You're going to tell us of a time in your life when you were dismissed for something, anything at all, a crazy idea, a crazy pursuit, maybe a career choice, something very meaningful that you never pursued again because you were dismissed for it. I want you to particularly about the one you didn't pursue again, not the one that you eventually fought against the grain and still did. Tell me about that time when somebody or a group of people dismissed you for something meaningful and you didn't pursue it again. Please proceed. Okay, no, 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 no. Okay, you can use that mic.
Okay. So growing up, I used to like writing and
Okay.
reading.
Okay.
So I've read a lot of books, Chimamanda, Chinua Achebe, like all the popular Wole Soyinka and everything. I was a science student, good in maths, engineering, wrote Calvepedia, all those competitions. So I think after secondary school, I said I wanted to study English. I was very close to my English teacher.
Right.
And my dad was like, "What's wrong with you? Everybody is expecting you to be a doctor." So when I graduated, I never wanted to be anything in science. I was top of my class,
Oh wow.
good in mathematics. I had a B in mathematics. So I was top jam. I scored 260 something. I taught my maths, physics, chemistry, but I was not drawn to anything science. I loved English. I was good at science, but I loved English. So I loved writing. I think when I started Instagram, I posted a few things I started. But over time, my dad was like, it is not practical. Studying medicine, all my friends were studying medicine. I did not want to study medicine because all my friends were studying medicine. So I went to study engineering. So right from when I was in school, even till now, I used to tell people, I still like literature. I follow a lot of literature pages. I remember the first time I've met Chimamanda, by the way. She signed a book of mine. I went to a boot
That's
camp
so
of
cool.
hers. So when I'm more fulfilled when I meet people like that than
Yeah.
not like I'm bad at what I do now, but
Yeah.
there's this sense of, oh, I'm with this kind of people. But over time, they're like, it is not practical to go on and be a writer or study English or pursue a passion in English. So
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, thank you for sharing. I'll comment on that, but let Martha go. You've never been rejected or dismissed or interesting life you've lived. Okay, no problem. If there isn't any time you can think of, that's fine. So let me comment on that and why I asked us. Sorry, Nora, please share. Please share. Tell us of a time.
Say, come to, okay, a time where I've
Yes.
been
Rejected or dismissed or whatever it is, sha, but it has to be a time when the rejection caused you not to follow that path anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have two. So I wouldn't say it made me not to follow that path because it's not like like the rejection made me not to even get to the point where I would realize that, okay, there was a chance I could have an experience in this. So in school, I was for some reason so terrible at math. At least that's what my teacher said in secondary school. And he used to, unfortunately, he knew my parents, so he used to tease me that my mom is an accountant, my father is an investment banker. How is it possible that I am this dull at math? And for the life of me, I couldn't, like, I would study for math, but when I go there, it's like, those people that during exam, they're like, why are you guys using compass? Like, what are we doing with compass or protractor in this thing? I was that person. It was like Chinese, So I never really got to that point where I could develop that interest. But fast forward to, university, that fear of failing math made me to really scale it in economics and stuff like that. I know it's not the same kind of math, but it's still numbers. And for someone that hates math, like for people that hate maths, numbers is maths to us in every way. But so clearly it was a teacher problem. But then, I mean, now look at, we are not doing so, but even though I'm in the arts and stuff. And then, career wise, I worked in an organization where they were just starting, and my boss at the time was starting, and it was something that I came in as would I say a mercy, but as goodwill for the organization to help. But it was a situation where you're having imaginations of where you want to be, but your reality is not yet there. Rather than focus on building from where you are, you're trying to compare with your competitors and stuff like that. So he didn't have that context very well, and he was now trying to put pressure on my work to look like what the competitors were doing, even though they've been longer in the industry. And it was something that went on for so long that it started to affect my might in the industry. I started to dread anything that had to do with media communications, and I'll have you know that this is something I do for a living. But that experience what made me cancel myself out from it. I just wanted to completely, and I left it for a time. I wouldn't lie to you. I left it for a time, but then I decided I came back. I had some good wisdom, and I came back, and I'm doing so much better. So yes, fortunately, I didn't leave to never return. I left, but now I'm back. Now that I have more wisdom. So yes, that's my experience.
Thank you for sharing. I think Mojisola should share as well before we proceed to the next. So Moji, what we're talking about is a time in your life when you were dismissed or rejected, and because of that dismissal, you never followed that path again. So it could be something related to career. It could be a hobby that you really wanted to pursue. It could be some strong interest in something or someone. Whatever it is, just tell us of that time, and it has to be something you never pursued again.
Okay. I'm trying to think of what it is because honestly, I'm a dreamer girl. I've thought about many things how to do this like right. So okay. I think one of the things that I would have really done and I know that yes. Okay, I come from a family where I'm the last born. So it means that I was very wise enough when I was young to not let some things happen to me. Once it has happened to my siblings, my older ones, I just know that things right? I've seen certain patterns. I want to be able to do this thing and it to be accepted. So I literally shut my head on the lot of things. I wouldn't even that to see people. So growing up, I just knew that okay, I'm really what I want that has to be decided by and that has to be something to get. I just decided that without anybody having to convince me too much. But then I think I would have really loved to be what?
The what? The military.
Yes, I'm very serious. Yeah.
That's the one where they carry guns. That's military.
Yes.
Okay.
So today I will see you should like
Right.
for really like I would have gone to a military nursing school actually. It would have made it easier because I would have been closer to the very but then I couldn't. I had to go to work my parents.
Yeah.
And
No, don't worry. One example is enough.
yes. Okay, I wasn't also really good at math. I wasn't good at math, so already I already shut my head out on anything that has to do with engineering or whatever,
Yeah.
science, all this computer. So yeah, I think that's it.
Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. Lynn.
Online comment as well.
Okay. So let's take the online comment before she goes.
Okay,
No, I'll tell you what we're doing.
person says that I wanted to be an artist, like making a career in pencil drawing. But my father discouraged me because he never knew a millionaire who's an artist. Well, I'm an animator now. I find more fulfilling.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing, Tosin. So, Lynn, what we're doing is we're sharing experiences from our lives in which we were discouraged, dismissed, or flat out rejected. And because of that dismissal, we never follow that path anymore. So if you can think of any time, it's okay if there is not any such in your own history, but if you can think of any such, you can share.
So, no, I can't think of anything.
Okay, that's fine.
I think I've always wanted to be an accountant since I was like four. What? For you? Yeah. So serious. My parents, like, you know, the airport, took me to banks, took me to talk to workers, and all that.
Wow.
And when I got to uni, like 200 around, like, I'm not doing this. I think that's the closest to this semester I've gotten. And I kind of treated school like excitement so throughout. But now I'm back to seeing that oh, this thing is a scam. So I'm back to finding my interest in it and rejecting. So no, I've never really let this myself get away because it was never so peaceful.
Interesting. Hmm. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so the reason why I had all of us share these things is because, well, every one of these people here that faced their own measure of dismissal or rejection, we may never have known their names if they had stopped. And this is sad to say, but maybe we would have known you guys' names for other things if you had pursued those things. But it's fine because I don't think anybody here is more than 40. So you still have a lot of time to do the things you're doing and become the best at it. But the beauty of drawing this parallel is because someone like Mr. or Sir Gordon that was told biology is just not for him and he should just forget about it entirely. That's one of the craziest stories. He ranked 250 out of 250 and was said to be very dull and a waste of time. And he won the Nobel Prize in Physiology of Medicine. That's crazy. But that only happened because of self belief. And that's what I want us to establish first before we go into the mechanisms of genius. If you don't believe in yourself enough to follow a path long enough for it to show results, there is no point in even pursuing anything else. Like you have to be your first and biggest fan. I remember, and I'll share other stories to give more light to this thing. So one of my brothers, when he was growing up, he had difficulties learning and even reading. I think up until JSS one, he couldn't even read properly. And before he entered university, he also struggled to gain admission. I think his name finally came out as one of the last names. He graduated at the top of his class. He was the best graduating student in law and went on to do so well thereafter. Founded a law firm, has done really big stuff across board. Like he's just been constantly climbing because he never listened to anybody telling him no. And I would draw an important distinction between being a child and then being an adult. As a child, he was very much encouraged. So whether or not his results were that good, nobody in the house was going to give him any hassle. That's how our parents were. Nobody was going to stress you over your results. You're going to the school, we know you will eventually get it. That was just how it was. So he never had any time when personally he was made to feel like he was not good enough, like from home. So the environment at home helps him. That's for a child. For an adult, you don't have the luxury of a curated environment that will tell you you're the best. Don't worry, keep going. You don't have that. You have to curate that environment mentally first and then drive yourself forward to results. That's how it works as an adult. So, right now, for all of you that have never been dismissed, I'm promising you it's coming soon. At one point, it's as long as you want to do anything meaningful, you will be dismissed. Your ideas will be dismissed. It's normal. If you want to do anything at all that is even remotely meaningful, think about some of the top Afrobeat artists today. Someone like Tiwa Savage, these people were dismissed over and over and over again. In adulthood, you don't have the luxury of that supportive environment where you can get encouragement for your process, your life, and everything in between. You will need to generate it from inside. And this is what I actually believe a genius is made of, not the knowledge alone. Because there are people who have died with amazing pieces of knowledge. There are people who have died with so much intelligence. But then the ones whose names we know were the audacious ones. But audacity comes from self confidence. You cannot boldly go and take on a giant if you are not first confident in your skills. You cannot be confident in your skills if you have not first developed those skills. So there is a train. It starts from due diligence in the field, in the area of your expertise. You learn gradually over time. You test yourself with the best in the industry. Even if what you're doing might be considered weird at the time, you keep going and you create opportunities, talk to people, actively and aggressively seek for platforms to assess that which you claim to be made of. This is how self confidence is built. Anything other than that is not self confidence, it's just you being bogus about your identity. To be truly self confident means that you have a, a framework that you believe in. There is something laid down. You cannot claim self confidence if there is nothing in between. So it all starts with that process of diligence. That's where it starts with building yourself on a daily basis, growing, and then testing. Testing is so important because I'll give myself as an example. I was so confident. I've always been extremely confident. So I was so confident growing up, and I used to come up with almost every day in SS2, SS3. I'd come up with a theory or a different way of doing what every other person was doing, either in chemistry or some other place. Some of them will work out well, others will not work out well, but nothing shall stop me. But I started to notice that when people countered me or challenged me, I did not have a good enough defense. And that was because there was confidence, but there was no diligence. I had not built any track record of learning properly, of knowing everything about what I was doing. So when I was challenged, I would drop it. Not out of lack of confidence, but out of a presence of facts that dispute what I'm saying. And that's the thing. People can use correct facts the wrong way. So if you don't have the actual accurate knowledge, you will be driven out of your domain for something that you will actually write about. It's and then I have another example to give. In SS3, I conceptualized a machine that could potentially filter blood. This was before I had ever read of anything of this sort. And I started drawing the schematics, trying to do everything. Actually, it's a friend, my closest friend at the time. And I was like, this is rubbish. It's just not possible. And I was so pissed, but I respected him. Anyway, fast forward to year 4 medicine, I saw exactly that. It's called an apheresis machine. It's able to filter blood. So you can get different components of blood from it. You can get only plasma, you can get only red blood cells, you can get only white blood cells. That's actually what I was thinking of then, but there was no knowledge to back me up. So when somebody challenged me, I just closed the book and that was it. So, but then I was actually true. I was just trying to make the point of someone can use wrong facts or right facts deceptively and throw you out of the path if you don't know what you're doing. So it's so important to start with diligence in knowledge. So you learn over time, step by step, every day. And you don't just learn randomly. When anybody meets me about wanting to do anything meaningful in any field, the first thought that comes to mind, I don't always say it, but the first thought that comes to mind is go and read this textbook. I don't usually recommend regular books. I tend to recommend textbooks because writers of textbooks are not trying to be, they're not trying to be seen as bestsellers. They just want their books to go very wide for everybody in that field to learn. It's writers of other kinds of books, like maybe self-help books, motivational books, fiction, and the rest that want to be bestsellers. So the idea driving an author of a textbook is one that has to do with pure knowledge sharing, not one that has to do with bias sharing. They are not trying to send the narrative anywhere at all. They just want to explain things in as simple a method as possible. That's what textbook people are thinking of, which is why I tend to recommend textbooks, because if you're reading a textbook, you're getting the principles of that field. You're getting the theory. So if you ever wanted to practice, you're not limited. If you're reading a book that has been refined, so let's just go into computer science, and you're reading something about Python, but it's not a textbook, it's just a book about different use cases and scenarios. It's beautiful, but the person is giving you a limited perspective, their perspective. But if you're reading a textbook about Python, you're not getting someone's perspective. You're getting someone's composite of knowledge that they've gathered. That's what you're getting. So it's still limited, but not limited in a way that could deceive you. It's just limited in a way that this is what one person has gathered from different sources, of course. And that's the beauty of reading textbooks. It's why when I mention your journey of building your track record through diligence in gathering knowledge, I would say textbooks first. Because at some point, you need to stand and defend any claim before different types of audiences. You need to be able to speak from, at that point, you need to be able to speak from a principle-driven perspective, not from I feel like this is this, I feel like we could agree with this person. And I'm going to give you a very crazy example to drive this point home before we move on. In about 240 BC, there was this gentleman called Eratosthenes. He was a mathematician who grew up in Cyrene, but moved to, I think, Alexandria. He had this wild idea to measure the circumference of the earth. Let that sink in. The reason I'm calling this a wild idea is because at the time, people were still thinking of how flat the earth is. They were still arguing about the width of the earth in terms of how flat it is. This guy not only was sure that the earth was spherical, he went ahead to try and measure it. That's not even the crazy part. The craziest part is he was correct. So what he did was he knew the exact distance between two cities, and then he waited for a day when there was, I think, equal day and night, so an equinox. So at that time, when it was about 12 noon, in one city, he knew a vertical pole was not going to have any shadow. But then in the other city, there was going to be a shadow. So he knew he was going to use the angular distance of that shadow to measure a proportion of how do I put this? I want to carry everybody along. So just think about it like he was going to measure something with that second pole, and then he collated the data. and used it as a part to represent the whole, which is the entirety of the earth. Why he was able to do this is because we know, or he knew, that any circle, its full circumference, angular distance is 360 degrees. So if you measure something and a portion of a circle to be 5 degrees, all you need to do to know how many more degrees are left to make up 360 is divide 360 by that 5 degrees. And that's exactly the way he did it. Once he had measured that portion, he just multiplied it by the amount of that at scale. And he got a figure of 40,000 kilometers. So recently, scientists, of course, with better technology, satellite imaging, measured the circumference of the Earth, and its widest width is about 40,076 kilometers. Smallest width is 40,008 kilometers. So this guy was off by just 8 kilometers. He did this in 240 BC. So Jesus was not even born when he was measuring the circumference of the earth. Think about how crazy that is. His peers were still thinking about how flat the earth is. He was not only sure the earth was spherical, he measured it accurately. And I believe the reason he was even off by 8 kilometers is because of the unit of measurement he used. He used what they used to call stadia. So there, one stadia is about 800 kilometers. So I'm thinking that it's the stadia approximation that even caused him to be off by those 8 kilometers, because his math was solid. All he used were principles, because he had no satellite technology to observe the entire earth. He just used solid principles of math. That's what knowledge can do for you. With that kind of knowledge, if they wanted to crucify him and say he's a wizard for knowing this kind of thing, he would die happily, because he was convinced he was right. That's what knowledge does. You know you are right because the math cannot lie. The principles cannot lie. And that's why the road to self-confidence starts with knowledge. Obviously, it's why knowledge also makes people proud. But let's forget about the pride aspect of knowledge and stick with the self-confidence aspect. Our major problem as individuals is knowledge gathering. Sources. So we get the sources of knowledge wrong. The time spent ruminating on knowledge is too short. And then the quality of minds we use to test this knowledge also is quite poor. And so a popular philosopher would describe a generation as having a time of an Olodo uprising. That really points at something that did not start today. So it started when automation started. As things were made easier for every successive generation, we had people seeking to spend less and less time with the principles of everything. In the time of Heisenberg, that's Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, Isaac Newton, who again? In the time of those great guys, you can spend days just studying about rhetoric, and you come out of your home and everything is just so bright and beautiful. Nobody's really disturbing you. You're just studying. You can spend days studying one particular question in mathematics. Isaac Newton went and invented differential calculus because someone asked him a question about another of his theories that he was proposing. So in order to explain it properly, he had to invent a branch of mathematics. That's how beautiful people's minds worked back then, because they had the luxury of time to spend learning. Today, if you decide to spend 10 hours a day learning, you'll go broke. Because it's as simple as that. The odds are stacked against you. So I'm not trying to say that we just grew lazy. No. The environment we found ourselves in today is counterintuitive to studying hard. The only period when you can study hard is during school years. Once you've graduated and you become a professional, you have KPIs that are choking you. your bosses, your clients, they need deliverables delivered on the time that, as and when due. That's how it works. You don't have the time to study. If you don't have the time to study, well, you don't know enough. So you would just cap yourself at somewhere, which is why we see the greatest we see some, let me not say the greatest, but we see some of the greatest innovations come from universities. So institutions where every other person is learning, someone is doing their PhD, their masters, that's what they are doing for a living at that time. So they are learning for a living, so to speak. That's why we can see Google that we're all enjoying came from two Stanford research PhD students. Facebook came from, of course, we all know Mark Zuckerberg. These things came from universities because in a university you are insulated to learn. But when you enter the real world, there's no insulation anymore. You have to create time to learn. And I'll tell you a hack that I use so that I am constantly learning and constantly on my toes. What I do is I constantly surround myself with people who want to learn. So I constantly seek knowledge to give them. Because there is no other way to justify why I'm spending so much time reading things if there is no outlet for it. So that's one. Two, I create things that I create avenues like this, for instance, that that push me to deliver. So if I have a new community I just started called Thinkers and Builders, and I've already set up Thursdays as Time for Life classes. So every Thursday I have to prepare. The only way I will not make a fool of myself is by reading for that. So these things have now pushed me into a model of thinking and behaving that I always have to read, I always have to study, and always have to study well because I'm not just coming to share the knowledge with people that don't know stuff. People will ask me questions, people will question my assertions. So I have to be able to defend the things I am saying. So I have to study well. So this is me just throwing a few hacks at you. Like you can try a few of these things. They tend to work very well, especially in a very busy environment. If you have a busy lifestyle, you would want to put in things that are checking and balancing you. Because apart from that, you find yourself not knowing why you should be learning. You find yourself not giving a distinction between the knowledge you are gathering just for your KPIs and the knowledge you're gathering for society as a whole. Because those are two very different things. Your KPIs have to do with that brand and how that brand should be better than the other one, or that client and how that client's work should be better than the other one. But personal pursuit of knowledge is unbiased largely. Obviously, you would have your own biases, but there is nobody breathing down your neck trying to suffocate you and make you feel bad for learning this thing. And currently, I think we're about approximately 8 billion people. Imagine if just a quarter of those 8 billion people started to learn for the purpose of learning and not to meet KPIs alone. Just imagine how much more rich or how much richer the world would be. Like I just casually talked about Sir Isaac Newton inventing an entire branch of mathematics just to prove something. There's this other Russian mathematician that I like, Markov, who, so he was an atheist. He had a counterpart who was a Christian. And he wanted to, the Christian came up with a theory that sort of try to explain that you can only predict the behavior of maybe populations when you're considering what he called independent variables. And then that Christian tries to now push it to the presence of a God and free will. And he tried to just mix religion into the theory. This atheist is angry and he says, you know what, I'm going to prove this guy wrong. And he goes and locks himself up and studies for a time and comes up with a counter theory just so that he could argue with that guy. And then that theory powers everything about machine learning today. It just came up from an argument. It's like someone just wanted to disprove somebody, and then Markov came up and proved that you could actually predict the behavior of um, dependent variables as well. So not just independent variables, and that's what was now called Markov chains. And so Markov chains are the bedrock of everything about large language models, and of course the entire AI industry came out from an argument between two people. This is me just throwing different examples around, still to make the same point about the usefulness of having the right knowledge. Because once we leave this place of having the right knowledge, I'm going to go into mental models. So I want you to soak in having the right knowledge properly and how to even get the right knowledge. So far we've spoken about, let's see how much time we have. We still have some time. So far we've spoken about the place of audacity. And so I tracked back from audacity to self-confidence and from self-confidence to knowledge. Yes. So that's where I have dwelt. So now let's move to self-confidence since we've treated knowledge. So self-confidence is a function of what you believe in your subconscious, unfortunately. So no matter what I claim with my mouth right now, if I am faced with something that tests that claim, and that claim has not yet been translated into my subconscious memory as a core belief, I will fail. That's the unfortunate thing about how the brain works. And I'll give an example. A child can come up here and say, I'm not afraid of snakes, or I'm not afraid of lions. And the child can excitedly say it. And then you bring him in front of a lion, and then the child is crying and bawling and then looking for help everywhere. That's because as to that child's entire experience, he or she fully believes that thing, or it's just in their conscious mind. Their subconscious mind has not yet subscribed to that belief. And until your subconscious mind subscribes to any belief, it's not yet a core belief. Now, the ability to form core beliefs is the exclusive preserve of human beings. An ape cannot stand up and say, I do not believe in democracy. We need dictatorship. Even though the ape has the ability to do some level of critical thinking, the ape cannot have a core belief. But you can. So I'm going to teach you how to form core beliefs right now, because it's what differentiates you from apes. So you need to know how to do it very well. So yeah, core beliefs. A core belief is a generally held idea about anything. Common examples would be religion, economics, politics, and lifestyle changes. But then how do core beliefs form? Now, this is very interesting, because if you know how core beliefs form, you can trick your brain into holding certain things as more core beliefs than others and letting go of certain things that have been holding you back. It's very, very crucial. Another reason why it's crucial is because confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is caused mostly by your core beliefs. So a confirmation bias is the tendency to see new information in the light of previously held biases or beliefs. Should I give this example? Somebody I know was having an argument with somebody. And in that argument, somebody A was trying to opposit a position, or person B was speaking purely out of emotions, and person A, who was also riled up by emotions, was able to see through person B's emotions and used person B's emotions against them and manipulated them into just getting angrier and angrier and looking like the mad person in the conversation. Now, this is something I do, by the way, but I'm not the person we're speaking about. Like, well, let me not say something I do, something I used to do. Like, I've repented. I no longer do it. But while I did it, it was fun. But the only reason why you can have that much power over another person is because every statement, every sigh, every tear, Everything a person expresses, either as a mental notion or as an emotion, comes from their core beliefs. It doesn't matter who you are, it's from your core beliefs. It is why people can be manipulated. It is why narcissists are able to do what they do. They understand core belief systems. They understand a person's need to be accepted, and they use that to manipulate the person. Your core beliefs can be used to help you if you understand how they are formed, and can be used to really just delete you if someone else knows about them better than you. So, how are core beliefs formed? There is this part of the brain called hippocampus, which is useful in memory storage, and it happens to be placed at the middle of a system called the dopamine mesolimbic cycle. Now, the dopamine mesolimbic cycle in the brain works like this. I develop a goal, an objective today. Say I want to deliver a lecture. As I have said that, my brain has already registered what I think a lecture means and what I think delivering a lecture means. If I don't achieve that goal, there will be a reduction in the amount of dopamine released. If I achieve that goal, there will be an increase in the amount of dopamine released. That's the first part of the dopamine mesolimbic cycle that most people know about. The second part is how core beliefs are then formed. If I repeatedly go over that cycle for a particular thing, my brain comes to believe that this is something that defines not just my habits, but my identity. So when something moves from a habit to an identity through repetitive use, it becomes a core belief. So it does not matter what it is. That's the unfortunate part. The more unfortunate part is these things can happen without your permission. You don't always know when it's happening. So a core belief can be formed by a relationship, a close relationship with a sibling. It can be formed by a bitter relationship with a parent. It can be formed by anything. But there has to be a repetition of that stimulus. So you have to be getting it again and again and again. That's the default. I don't know how it might happen to me way. Now, how can you happen to a core belief? Scientists studied monks for, I think, a period of 6 months, and they noticed that just by meditating for 27 minutes daily for, I think, 6 weeks, they were able to form new neural pathways, aka core beliefs. They were able to restructure their brains through meditation. So this is one surefire shortcut to forming core beliefs and to dislodging core beliefs. So if you want to form a new core belief, you have to present that idea to yourself as a clear statement. It cannot be something scattered. It has to be a clear statement. And it has to include a clause that links it to your identity. So a clear statement with a clause that links to your identity, you have to repeatedly say it. This is scientific. This is not a spiritual thing. I mean, it's still a spiritual thing for those who believe, but it's also purely scientific. You have to have it clearly stated, and you have to have a clause about your identity, and then you have to repeatedly say it out loud to yourself for sufficient time on a daily basis. The beauty of core beliefs is sometimes it gets registered in your subconscious, but your consciousness has not caught up to it. So you can say, I'm not like this, but because of how much you've exposed yourself to this thing, you have actually become like that. And the way you respond will now betray you that you actually are like that. And that's the thing about core beliefs. So core beliefs help with your identity. They help you shape your identity actively in adulthood. And then of course it's what pushes you to have accurate self-confidence. That's how I got here, by the way. I was talking about self-confidence, and so I needed to go through the route of core beliefs. because your core beliefs, without them, like I said, you might as well just be an ape, because that's that is one thing that differentiates you from them. So you have to be able to nurture your core beliefs. A- And when I say nurture, I mean nurture. Just the same way you can intentionally formulate them. Someone like a nefarious actor can intentionally expose you to negative stimuli and dislodge core beliefs they want to be dislodged in you. I'll give an example. Very weird example, might hurt some of your feelings. In South America, I think this was 1970s, if I'm not mistaken, thereabouts, or 1960s. The CIA noticed that the Catholic Church had brought so much structure to everyone's lives. And I used to be Catholic. So Catholics are big on politics, they're big on practicing excellence, they're big on structures, systems, education. So Catholics came with all of these things. And these people started realizing their rights, and they started knowing what to do and how to fight for their rights and stake claims on society. At this time, CIA needed some of the resources in some of those South American nations, and they did not want these people to have a sense of self. Guess what they did? They sponsored Pentecostal evangelists. They actually sponsored them to South America and converted many of the Catholics to become Pentecostals. Pentecostals are big on spontaneity. They don't really think through things thoroughly. And the CIA knew this. So when the people became largely Pentecostal, they stopped seeking for societal change. Heaven became the goal, and they had no need for properly structuring their systems here. This is knowledge of core beliefs used to transform an entire region in the image of those who know. So these things happen, but nobody nobody is going to say because you lack the knowledge, because you are ignorant, you're not going to be affected. So what I have given you is the weapon to now nurture your own core beliefs, protect them, because with this you can tell when a new core belief is trying to form, because you become more self-aware. When something is repeatedly, gnawing at your subconscious, you can now tell, because there will now be a subconscious trigger as well, that you're now starting to feel a certain type of way about something. And of course, another thing about core beliefs is they have a strong emotional anchor. There is no core belief without a strong emotional anchor, which is why if you're in a conversation with somebody, don't try this at home, but if you're in a conversation with somebody and you want to take control of the conversation, let's say it's a high stakes conversation, a negotiation of sorts, you want to identify at least two of the person's core beliefs really quickly once you start the conversation. Don't listen to what they are saying alone. Listen for their core beliefs. And then if you want to drive it in a particular direction, you can amplify the core beliefs. You can make them more emotional than technical by nudging at a core belief negatively and then amplifying another one to your advantage. This thing takes practice because it could backfire if you don't do it properly. So that's why I said don't try it at home. But it takes practice. It's so useful. Final element before we close out this first session is audacity. So knowledge, self-confidence, audacity. Audacity is the end product of these two things I have said. Anybody with knowledge and self-confidence is by default now audacious. However, how do you direct your audacity such that you don't waste your potential? I think that's the only thing I'll talk about. So audacity is what will make somebody transition careers. Audacity is what will make somebody start studying something that other people are not studying. Audacity is what will make someone like Cristiano Ronaldo to go to the world to go to the World Cup at 41. Audacity is what will make Djokovic to still be playing at the highest stage at this age. Audacity is really what differentiates small minds from big minds at the highest stage. I'll explain. Do you know that pretty much, let me use football, every footballer you know of that is popular is as good as the ones we consider the best. The difference is the ones we consider the best are audacious enough to do the risky things at the highest stage. That's the difference. I promise you. If you see these guys elsewhere, they all play alike. What differentiates it is one person has believed in themselves so much so that they will try a rainbow flick at the middle of a finals, or they will do something really crazy. The regular player just wants to pass it to the next person really quickly to be safe, so that they will not say he spoiled the play. That's the regular player's mind. The audacious player is not afraid of the risky plays. Every other person has practiced that same move. This person is the only one who is audacious enough to try it, to have the presence of mind to even consider trying it. Now, I was very athletic earlier in my life. Still, I'm athletic to an extent right now. But I remember playing in a competitive football match when I was doing my housemanship. And I remember my legs becoming so heavy the more we moved closer to the finals. So every match, I would notice that my legs are so heavy, I can't move them as much. It was just fear gripping me. I was not audacious enough, obviously, because there was not much self confidence, even though I knew I could do this thing when it was at my backyard. But on this field of play, I did not have it in me to, I didn't have the presence of mind to even think of certain skills. That's how it works. Now let's just contextualize this to your own career paths. Where you're in a meeting and you're seeing someone constantly asking intelligent questions, constantly giving intelligent additions, and you're wondering, why am I not thinking? Why is my brain not working? So that's it. That person is so used to believing in themselves that at that level, they can produce from their wealth of experience. You may have more experience, your brain is not finding it at that time because you lack audacity, which is meant to connect everything from before to the point of implementation. So when it's a high stakes situation, the only people who have the presence of mind to do anything are the audacious. Every other person might be just as good, but they can never implement with presence of mind. That presence of mind where you are aware of everything that you know, all your knowledge pieces, you can put them in the right place and you can just, bring them forth. That thing is a function of audacity. It's not expertise. The reason I say it's not expertise is because they are not the only experts in that meeting. They are not the only ones who know what they know, but they are the only ones who can do it in that high stakes situation. And so that's how audacity works. And that's why it's so important for you to be audacious if you ever want to bring out your genius. So you can see how I told the story from first principles in terms of knowledge to self confidence and then audacity. Because every one of these guys and lady here, they had to be audacious. Do you know what it takes for someone to say gravity is not really a force in the conventional sense, but you might think of, and Einstein was crazy. He actually came up with this thought experiment and he said, think of gravity like you stretching out a sheet, like a bed sheet, and then putting a heavy ball at the middle. The way it sinks, that's bed sheet. And then if you put maybe tinier balls, they'll all flow towards it. That's how gravity works. Do you know what it takes to think about gravity like that? When Newton has already said, I throw an apple up, it falls down. That's gravity. You then think that it's not just that. It's not just a force in the conventional sense. It's actually something that can warp space and time. That thing blew my mind the first time I read it. How do you think that time that the average person thinks they are subject to can be warped by something physical, like gravity. Yes, wow. He thought of this thing in, I think, 1930. So it's not at a time when it was conventional. To think that, and then it has been proven. That's the crazier part. It has actually been proven. That's the funny thing. The fact that I'll tell you how the first one and the second. I'll tell you about. So let me just do this instead. So I'll tell you about special theory of relativity and general theory of relativity, so you understand just how cool that gentleman is. Special or general first? General. General theory of relativity has to do with gravity. So think about it like that example I just gave. Stretch a sheet, you put a heavy ball. Any issue? Okay. You put a heavy ball in the middle and then it causes the sheet to sink. And you put tinier balls around and they all just roll towards that center point. That's how he sees gravity working. And then people are like, no, that cannot be it. That to prove it, then it will have to be able to potentially bend light. And this was noticed when we finally saw that light bends if it passes close to a black hole. In physics, we're taught that light travels in a straight line. Light cannot bend. Light can only be reflected, diffracted, and all those other things. But Einstein in 1920, 1930 sits and thinks that light can bend. It can actually bend if gravity pulls, and that's not all. Time can bend. so I'll explain it. So for general theory of relativity, I think the easiest explanation is just if you had a twin who was on the international space station and you were here on Earth, because you're closer to the Earth's core, which is its source of gravity, you would age slower than your twin on the international space station because time moves faster for you the farther away you are from a source of immense gravity. Moves slower for you the closer you are to a source of immense gravity. So you age slower than that your twin on the International Space Station. And they confirmed it when they sent GPS satellites to space. They had to correct for that in the atomic clocks on the satellites because they noticed the clocks there were running faster than the clocks here. So that's proof of general theory of relativity. Special theory of relativity has to do with, I think general is gravity, special is light. So special theory of relativity, take a look at it in this way. My perfect example. So I'll start with this. Every time you look up at the night sky, you're looking into the past because all the stars there are dead. They sense their lights from when they were, millions of years ago. And then it finally got to your eyes, when you looked up. Most of them are dead already. They are not in existence. But that's not the cool part. The cool part is that the faster you approach the speed of light, the slower time moves for you. And potentially, if you reach the speed of light, time stops. So, for those of you who believe in God, you can think of God as existing outside of time because he's faster than light. Anyway, that's just some fun experiments to think about. But anyway, this is the reality of the special theory of relativity. The faster you move, the slower time moves for you. This was confirmed. So an atomic clock was put in a Concorde jet. That's those jets that fly faster than the speed of sound. Another one was put on the ground. So the one flying boom, boom, boom everywhere. After its flight path, they checked both of them. They saw that one was slower than the one on Earth because that one was moving at a much slower speed because the aircraft it was on was moving way faster. So even the concept of time that you believe this defines your reality is not constant. It's not even as real as the experience of it. And this guy thought about these things in 1920s thereabouts. I want you to see how audacity works. Do you see how weird it is to even discuss it in 2026? And somebody wrote, and he didn't just say that's it. He went and discovered the mathematics to prove it. E equals to mc squared. That's crazy audacity. You don't do that without audacity. It's not knowledge that gets you there. It's audacity that gets you there. It's audacity. As beautiful as these theories are, they would never have existed if Einstein had remained a clerk as they wanted him to remain when they didn't give him a job. But that's how cool it is when you think of audacity transforming lives. It's you have a question? Please, yeah, we're going to open the floor for questions, because I'm rounding off this phase. Well, anyway, to round off properly, if you believe enough in what you're doing and in the works of your hands, your career path, and you're not being audacious, you're wasting your time. The reason why I say you're wasting your time is because you would always be like that person who saw it from afar but never quite could get it in their grasp. It's only the audacious that would actually grasp these things. I came up with a theory for potentially figuring out anything. First time I wrote that theory down, it was scary to me because I'm like, if this is true, maybe someone else should have thought about it. That's usually where it starts. You start doubting yourself in that way. If this is as great as I claim it is, somebody else should have written about it. Someone else should have done some study on it. But what if someone else saw it and they were just not bold enough to write it? And then I also crumble under the pressure of not being bold enough, and then I don't write it, and then I leave it. What then happens? What if Einstein decided general theory of relativity, special theory of relativity? What if he decided to just let it go? He wasn't even so great at math initially. It's crazy to think of these things because usually you would think to be anything confidently, you have to have been the best in everything prior to that point. But that's not it. And that's what I've just shown you with these guys. How can someone win a Nobel Prize in medicine and rank 250 out of 250 people in class? Like, how bad do you have to be the last out of 250? And then win a Nobel Prize after in the same field. Or like the chemists that won a Nobel Prize in chemistry or failed chemistry in high school. Crazy, but it's audacity. Audacity has to suppress everything else. But that's why I started with knowledge, yeah? Because audacity has that capacity to suppress every negative sentiment. But if it suppresses everything in the absence of knowledge, you'll be foolishly audacious. So I had to draw the parallel straight up from there. So thank you so much, everybody. This has been really wonderful. We can now ask questions and interact and generally allow our minds flow and fly and float. So, any takers?
Because mine is just no, it's not like it's a lot. I was just thinking of the science of things, but please go first. All right, so I just want to draw back from what you said earlier when you were much younger and you were able to design something to help filter blood, but you weren't aware that there were things that you could. So I've noticed that sometimes when I'm being introduced to a new, how do I put this now? A new thing, right? It's very easy for me to come up with ideas for that thing.
Okay.
More than I would when I have like more knowledge of it. I don't know if I'm making sense. That more knowledge can mean that you now have biases towards that solution that you're trying to create, that okay, am I sure that this thing is going to go this way? But prior to having that knowledge,
Yeah.
you were able to come up with so many ideas for these things. So like how does that now equate to gathering that body of knowledge that you need to, advance that thought?
Interesting question. So the thing about more knowledge is obviously it will make you more aware. If you're more aware, you're more careful. So a baby does not fear jumping on the bed. They're not aware of what a skull fracture is, so they don't fear it. But when they become aware, they become cautious. The audacious, like I said about Cristiano Ronaldo, are not afraid of taking risks despite their awareness. So Ronaldo has said, if I kick a penalty and I miss, I'll kick another one. If I miss, I'll kick another one. The unaudacious would fear embarrassment from the first miss and they will not kick the second one. Do you get? So audacity is really that thing you need when you've consumed knowledge and you become afraid. It's audacity that now makes you stand up and still gives you the presence of mind to still see those creative ideas you could see before. It's audacity. So audacity, despite the presence of knowledge, it still doesn't make you too cautious because the audacious person does not fear embarrassment. They don't fear failure. They don't really fear anything.
You have a question?
No, yeah, because it's quite similar to what you said. I also remember this when you mentioned sorry, I'm so sorry, I just have to really
Thank you. When you said you were drawing up the schema of the, I don't know how to pronounce it. Whatever. I've had instances like that ideas will just come naturally to me. And I didn't even know that those things actually exist before. And like the way it came to me is like, go and do this thing now. And like, yeah, in fact, you're already creating it. Then you now realize that, wait, this thing already exists and I didn't even know it already exists. What should I actually do about it?
Okay.
Because the fact that the idea came to me without me having the knowledge that it even exists in the first place,
Yeah.
I'm sure like it means something. So yes, there's still room for more. But then most of the times, the moment I now realize that something like that already exists, I just hold back that it already exists now.
So,
Why should I
so the
know about
thing
it?
is, if don't be afraid of building on or already existing bodies of knowledge. If you find out something exists, maybe ask questions about how the thing that exists works. Try to measure its current efficiency level and see if you can think around because everything that exists can be more efficient. There's no 100% efficient anything. So always think in the efficiency direction. So this already exists. Fine. Could it be more efficient? So we already had X-rays. Why did we go for MRIs? Why did we go for CTs? Because X-rays enable you to see inside the body. So something already exists. Somebody now thought, okay, maybe I can see inside the body and I'll see more muscular tissue than other kinds of tissue. So when I thought, okay, maybe I'll see more soft tissue than it's like that. So don't be afraid to build on already existing bodies of knowledge. Just open up the book and study, and it will come to you. Thank you. Next question or comment.
Okay, I'm waiting for somebody is asking what kind of questions are expected here. So I told him whatever questions came up as you listened, so preferably related to the topic. My question is, first of all, thank you so much for the session. I have learned so much. Just as you were speaking, my brain was like, I'm an artist, so my brain is just like busting in different directions. I was just thinking, like, I know I look serious, but this question I'm about to ask me changed the way. First of all, okay, you said that the closer a person, I know you're not, don't worry. The closer a person is to like the source of gravity,
Yeah.
the faster or
Slower.
the slower time moves for them. So I'm just saying, what then the farther away the faster.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm just thinking, what if mankind were to have like some kind of camp? Those parts of the ocean where they always say light does not get to.
Yeah.
that is beneath, like close to the Earth's core.
Yeah.
So what if we had, no, just what if we had some kind of camp there or some kind of civil? I mean, we're trying to get to the moon,
Yeah.
but we have something already on the planet.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that what if we were to have, that kind of camp somewhere in that level, that kind of depth? I know we've not got there, but what if we were to get to that point and have that camp in that depth that people can go there where they're trying to figure out their lives.
So that time stops. So
They just wait, just chill, because the truth is time is moving really fast. And as we said in this session, unlike in those what do you call those guys again? Those
guys,
BC, AD, whatever guys. There's no time to say you want to pause and give 10 hours to any subject, except you're in school. Otherwise, you just go broke. What if there's a place where you could just time just slow down for it, just figure things out a bit, even for Uncle Elon that is like going to where he's going to with the moon and stuff. I'm guessing time moves
the same
as us.
Sorry? Oh, it's
In
like when
Mars.
they're traveling. And it's
No,
to be.
Let's say if you were to be successful and people were to actually start staying on Mars.
It's the same because Mars has its own gravitational pull.
Okay, so let's just go back to the underwater.
Yeah. Not the same thing, but it's not too. Despite not much, it's not enough to cause any difference in time. As long as you're on the surface of matter, it's when you're in space that's now.
Somebody is thinking exactly what I'm thinking here. So she's saying, she said the same, because people just get the time to actually just not hibernate, relax, and actually really consider, before you come back into this.
Yeah, so we should consider
what
if,
is,
So the thing about it, I think in theory, these things.
In theory, it just might.
Yeah, actually.
We just need to build the machine we've gotten machines that have gotten us to the current depths we are in. We just need to build stronger ones that can take us to the next depth. I know you're laughing because they can say something stupid.
I'm just saying, when we have no money, that's what billionaires do. They just put some kind of side quests.
Okay, I didn't want to buy you that because they're not working on that. They're working for something. Okay, sorry. So I like Kopi. Kopi, DJ Kopi, Otedola's second daughter. So she's like my favorite celebrity. I've been following her for a while. Now, yes, so if I tell my friends, they'll laugh. So people think, oh, she's just a billionaire daughter, blah, blah, blah. So I follow her on all socials. And on Snap, that's where she posts most of her life. So this is the kind of person that she could be in London today, and tomorrow she's chilling with the Prime Minister's son or something. So sometimes she has a penthouse and should be there for like 2 weeks. Just flowers, things that are irrelevant to Nigerians, just doing things. And my friend would be like, look at the person you are following. But sometimes I feel she has that levity of just locking out, just living the real world. And when she's ready, she returns back and picks up the pace. So money buys you that luxury of time and everything. So if you have the money, so I think when you now have that money, it buys you that time. Money buys you money buys you time. Money buys you time.
I wish the entire world, all those decide and just say, okay, let's just decide that we are saying one. Can we pause? Everybody should just pause. Something is wrong. Everybody do it out. Maybe
Or another way is, I also mentioned speed, right? You could just run. Just keep running.
what Madam said is, I think it would apply to that same idea.
Yes, it's just where you made the money from.
So even if we created a technology that allows us to fight back on that, even if money to get it, I think it's
Right.
So we have to make this money that we buy all that time.
Yeah. Yes. We need money to buy ourselves time.
We need to get to see like our sister as knowledge. We're not really moving that you were working on.
Yes.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a video of Lagos in the 90s. So we have a question here.
Okay.
Somebody says, if we can travel, continue. Let me use the mic, sorry.
So we have a question here. The question says, if we can travel continuously forever at the speed of light, would that be both the spiritual and physical experience of eternity? If we can travel continuously forever at the speed of light, this is actually kind of if we could travel continuously forever at the speed of light, would that be both the spiritual and physical experience of eternity? So look at eternity from the physical side, the spiritual side. Because I feel like
So the thing is, this person is asking this thing. I don't know that you're spiritually Muslim or spiritually Christian or spiritually Hindu or so, but I'm a Christian, so I'll answer it from that perspective. So there was a time when Ezekiel saw some angels, and there's a way he described those angels that made me think, these guys might be traveling at the speed of light. So they only moved in straight lines. They just move like this, and then move like this, and then move like this, and then like they only moved in straight lines. They didn't really curve and stuff like that. So it made me think maybe these beings exist at the speed of light. They somehow vibrate at the speed of light, or are made up of light particles. So photons, they are the particles of light, if you can call it that. A photon that was released at the Big Bang, let's assume it had some kind of consciousness. By the time you interact with it, it's just aware of its being born. It does not really have any concept of passage of time. For it, it was just created yesterday or in this moment. So it's only this moment that exists for it. So if you could travel at the speed of light continuously, that's what will happen. Only this moment would exist for you. You could potentially, travel to the future, but then you can't come to the past. That's the bad thing about time travel. Theoretically, you can go to the future, but you can't really ever go to the past, because if I moved so fast, I'll be experiencing, if I moved so fast and time slows down for me, let's say I've aged by 2 years, you would have aged by 20, 30, 40 years. So technically I'm in your future, but I'm the same age. So if you're constantly traveling agelessly, you can maybe say that's the experience of eternity in that sense, but it's limited because it's just you. But if everybody's traveling like that, okay, maybe you could say it's fine and it's a beautiful thing for everybody to experience. But largely, I see that as a very interesting concept. And if you look into the Bible, really, maybe ask yourself why God is described with being light related, why there's so much him dwelling in unapproachable lights type thing. Why, there's just a lot of lights used to describe him. It might be just because of the nature of light itself, both the physical nature of light and the spiritual nature of light, as both understanding and then timelessness. Thank you. Any other question from there? Okay, I think we've done well. I actually think we've done well today. We've covered quite a lot of things, and we can close out now and just do some light networking and then eat our snacks. Sorry, you guys that are online. All right, thank you so much, everybody. This has been right. Oof. I don't have time for that again mentally. I don't. I promise you, I don't. I have already used up everything. Yes, mental models. Yes. So you guys can join the Thinkers and Builders community. And we'll talk about it there. I really wish I could talk about it, mental models, but we can't. I think there's also a group for Posteri. Maybe I can put a small excerpt there. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This has been amazing, and you have been an amazing audience. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, based on this light and speed thing,
Yeah.
these discoveries have been made for quite some time. And we know that there are like a number of
Can turn it
families
up.
on earth that are very, very well. So do you think that maybe one of them are used on maybe done something that can keep some of them in an environment that that can get them to the speed of light so that it can live slowly and then I don't think it gets lost.
I get what you're saying. It's just that the technology and money involved. There's so much about the friction barrier to break. We don't yet have the technology to move that fast. The faster you move, the more friction acts on the surface of the machine that you're using to move. So we've not. That's currently what's holding us back. We've not solved that friction problem. It's a very big problem to solve with moving at the speed of light. What they are doing that I'm aware of, there's this silly tech billionaire. We're no longer online, are we? There's this silly tech billionaire that is trying to reverse his age. So he takes plasma from his son. He does a lot of things. Does like hundreds of tests literally every month. Does so many things to his body, of course, a lot of Botox and stuff. So if you see the guy, he's in his 40s or 50s right now, but he still looks like they're in their 30s because of how much money he's just pumping into reversing aging. Why I like it is that he shares his blood work. So if anything is working, he's sharing it with the larger scientific community so they can tell if these processes he's using are just stupid or if they will work out in reversing aging. That's one. Second is some people die and just go to cryo state for a time when future technology will be able to wake them up. There's a big startup that does that. So you just preserve yourself in a cryo chamber with the hopes that future technology will be able to revive you and then get your consciousness back. They are dead. But no, they don't. They are hoping that since they are preserved in ice, future technology will be able to thaw them out and then transform their memories and everything to some computer. So upload them to some mechanical device. Yes, uploaded intelligence. I have. Very crazy. Pantheon. Yeah. So anyway, that's what people are trying. This speed thing is something that is a limiter right now. We can't really use speed.